Welcome to another episode of SportsVibe, episode 103. Been a while since I last recorded an episode of SportsVibe. Last time I was with Gabe, Pickup, and we did like a little 2 hour little overview of a lot of things that were going on in sports at the time, like NFL, college football, like I think the MLB, like pretty much everything. A little bit of basketball and hockey, I think, was in there too. So kind of like an overview, but we're gonna be changing kind of like the format. I think we have a new like streaming partner and everything coming up in a couple of weeks. So that's very exciting stuff for the podcast. Which again, I didn't really think it was gonna kind of continue past kind of just doing cameos and stuff for fun, but looks like it is gonna be continuing, and I'm definitely glad to bring it back. Obviously, you guys remember Andrew Rice. We do TBMR. Pretty much twice a week now, covering everything Rutgers related. But yeah, I mean, college football has always been like my, one of my favorite sports, if not my favorite sports. I mean, like some people like really enjoy March Madness, and I do too. But like this for me is like almost like even better because I don't know, there's something about college
This is
football.
our March
Yeah,
Madness.
that's exactly right. This is our March Madness. Like every game's big, every game's fun, everything matters. Like this is like something that we would like, obsess over, which is why we're bringing this podcast back. And it was already part of the plan that we were going to do episodes for the CFP. And then of course, now with my article series on the banks kind of relates with that since I'm doing game by game recaps. So I might as well bring the podcast back. And now it looks like we're going to be able to take it even further than that. But to kind of ramp back up here, we're going to be going over the college football playoff round by round as we advance towards the national championship. So very exciting stuff on the horizon for the series. And yeah, I mean, like, we're also going to be talking about in this episode, the FCS semifinals, preview the championship. We're going to look ahead to the quarterfinals, for the FBS, obviously, the New Year's slate, which is always one of the the best in the year, where you have four incredible games that really exciting venues and just big time football. Probably your best mix of quality and quantity. But I mean, obviously we'll get to that at the end. But I mean, first of all, an exciting first weekend of college football playoffs and the opening weekend home games that at home sites and stuff like that. I mean, all the pageantry. I guess what was your overall thought before we dive into specifics on how the opening weekend of the playoff went this year?
Well, first of all, and this might be a controversial opinion for people who have fallen in love with the traditional bowl sites. I think they need to host every game, except for maybe the championship, on a college campus. You know, I
Yeah,
don't personally, I'm very young, so I'm not connected to the tradition of the Rose Bowl. I'm not connected to the tradition of the cotton and citrus bowls and whatever.
right,
I
right,
wasn't
right.
watching, I wasn't watching the Big Ten champion play the Pac-12 champion for the Rose Bowl back before the BCS even existed. So,
Right.
in my opinion, now it is time to do away with these bowl games, the neutral sites, and host them on college campuses. Those atmospheres were electric. Oklahoma, Alabama,
Oh my
that's the one I
God.
really got to sit down
Yeah.
and watch. That was an absolute treat to just take a look at their fans.
It was like the light show that they did, and I mean we've even seen it at like Rutgers, like like a place that you don't really think about college football, like if you're a national fan, and even the way they do night games there, and the tailgating, the pageantry, and then
It's
you
on the
take it.
screen behind him. It's on the screen behind him. All I have to do is take a look at that.
Exactly. It's right here. The night game for like it's beautiful. That's why like it's my Twitter like banner. It's a lot of things because I really do enjoy going to the games, and especially night games. There's just something special about that environment. And now you amplify that, even more for like a playoff game and for like a home environment. Like we saw with Ohio State last year in the first round, they hardly get to host night games because of the big noon kickoff arrangement. When they do, it's like an absolute treat to turn on the lights at the shoe. And same thing. I mean, like you think about the whiteout at Happy Valley. You think about. I mean, we even saw it this weekend. We at the I mean at Oklahoma. What they did with the light show with bringing out 50 Cent with A&M. I mean, one of the coolest venues and traditions in all of college football, the midnight yell and the, coming out to power. I mean, there's just like nothing, over 100,000 people in the seats. I mean, even though that wasn't a night game, I mean, that place was electric for the A&M showdown. And I mean, it was just, yeah, even Ole Miss and Oregon and,
Morgan, yeah,
they,
those were good
yeah,
showings. Those were
those
good
are good
crowds.
showings. Like Ole Miss, I was impressed by all the light shows and the fireworks. Like, that was exciting. Oregon, Autzen Stadium, I mean, one of the iconic venues in the sport as well. And they definitely also showed out, against James Madison for the nightcap, even though for them it was, I guess, an afternoon game. But yeah, no, I mean, home environments are electric, and it's kind of too bad we're moving on from that. I mean, I know, like, the bowl sites are prestigious, like you mentioned, and I guess if you're an older college football fan, like I could see, like, you relating to that, and it's kind of like tradition. Like you have the Orange Bowl, you have the Sugar Bowl, but now none of these bowls are really tied to conferences anymore. It's just kind of, I guess the one exception for me is the Rose Bowl. Like that one's always really special. It's outdoors. It's with the scenic background, New Year's Day.
Fair.
Like I really do love and enjoy seeing that. But yeah, I mean, other than that, like all the other ones are just kind of NFL stadiums. It's kind of just blah and dry, and it's just whatever. I mean, the games are good, but we're definitely missing that element of college pageantry and home field environment, and just the rowdiness of, what I mean. It's just different.
Rowdiness of a home crowd. That's what makes college football college football.
Yeah,
But what do people know about college football other than the games being played? They know Virginia Tech coming out to enter
interesting.
Sandman. They
Exactly.
know won't back down from Florida. They
Mhm.
know Sandstorm at South
Oh
Carolina.
yeah,
They
oh
know
yeah,
Mr. Brightside
at Michigan, yeah,
at Michigan. They know what's that? Zombie Nation
at Penn
from Penn
State, yeah,
State. Yeah,
that
that
one's
is
iconic too. Yeah, they know
that's the
power
second
from
thing people
A
think
and
of.
M, like exactly, like all the traditions and like yeah, I mean all the wonderful things that make college football are at these home stadiums, and all
You don't
the
get that at a
walkouts.
neutral site.
Yeah, you don't. I mean, you get probably some of it, but it's not really. It's just not the same. Like it's just, yeah, it's just definitely not the same. But I mean, it is the format, and it's nice that at least I guess the first round games are on the home sites. But it kind of sucks that the better teams don't get to experience that for themselves. From 1 to 4, they just end up going to a neutral bowl site. Far away from home in most cases too, and yeah, that kind of just sucked. But at the same time, I guess there is a lot of tradition in these bowl sites, and it's kind of like one of those things. Like I guess when you're there, you appreciate it for what it is, and like the national environment and prestige and everything like that. But because it's like each one of these games is like, even before the playoff, it's like, oh my god, we're going to the Orange Bowl or going to the Rose, like that was even a big deal. Now it's like you can go to multiple of them, and but even each individual game, like if it's like the Orange Bowl, they have oranges. Like, there's just traditions, I guess, that go along with it that are pretty exciting. But yeah, I mean, I think I do agree with you. But I guess, with that being said, shifting over to, the first round of the playoff. Like you said, it started on Friday night. That is one that I got to watch more in depth because not a whole lot more was going on that day, and I was really looking forward to it. Last year we started off with Notre Dame, Indiana. This year we start off with Bama at Oklahoma. Yeah, I mean, like, and this one kind of, I think, lived up to the hype the most out of probably most of these games, I would say, and maybe A&M Miami, but in it, not really. And this one I think was probably the best game of the first round, I would say. Oklahoma goes up 17-0. I think they have control. Then Bama comes back, takes a 27-17 lead over OU, and then Oklahoma basically kind of stalled out on offense. And in the middle, I mean, Alabama blocked a punt where Oklahoma muffed it. There was a pick six that really swung the momentum of the game by Xavier Brown. And then even when Oklahoma was trying to make a comeback, Tate Sandell missed 2 field goal attempts, which really doomed their chances of, getting within like 10 points basically, or getting within a touchdown. Like they weren't able to convert on that. And then, I mean, yeah, the defense kind of faltered. They allowed a lot of points and touchdowns to the Crimson Tide. I think that what people knew was Oklahoma was going to go as far as their defense took them, because their offense was not playing well. I mean, they played good in the beginning, but over the course of the season, really, the offense has not been playing that great at all. I mean, Mateer, he threw a pick six. He kind of started strong this season. Towards the end of the season, didn't really do a good job, and I think that kind of showed up because Oklahoma was only able to kind of go as far as their defense took them, and once Alabama started scoring points, they just didn't have the answer. And yeah, I mean, I was a little bit surprised because I thought Oklahoma, their defense was going to be good enough to stop Alabama.
I mean, they did it before.
They did it exactly because of the previous results, going back to last season, especially this season. They did it even without one of their star defenders who came back into the lineup for this game. I thought Oklahoma would have it because their defense, in a home field environment, they'd be able to stop the Crimson Tide. And the way Bama played recently did not inspire any confidence. The way they lost to Georgia didn't even look like a competent football team that was anywhere near like SEC championship level at least. And for them to come out, and I mean, they fell behind like 17-0 on top of that too. And
yeah, they looked completely overwhelmed, and that was at the point where Notre Dame fans were pointing at the TV, going, "See, this is why we should have been in." And then at the end of the game, they were like,
never mind.
Maybe not."
Yeah, well, we'll get to the Notre Dame gripes like in a second because I feel like Notre Dame fans were definitely upset because of some of the other results that played out as well. But I mean, Ty Simpson I think had a pretty clean game. He went 18 for 29, 2 touchdowns. He found freshman receiver Lazier Brooks for the 2 touchdowns. Oklahoma's Deion Burks kind of has been making a name for himself. He had 107 yards and a receiving touchdown, but I mean, the run games are kind of stymied a bit, but I don't know. I mean, it's just like once Alabama kind of took momentum, it was just all Alabama. I mean, they had an interception, they were moving the ball through the air, on the ground a little bit. I mean, Oklahoma just really couldn't get, other than that one touchdown to Deion Burks over the middle, which was a pretty nice one. Like Oklahoma just didn't really have much life after they cut the lead to 3. And then Bama answered that one right back. And yeah, like I said, I was just a little surprised based on what I was expecting.
Essentially, Oklahoma spotted them 14 points.
Yeah, with the pick six and with the punt that was muffed and basically set up Alabama with like really good field position too. So obviously, I think that one ended up in like getting them a field goal, not even touchdown. And then
even still, they spot them 10 points. How much did Alabama win by?
10. Yeah, exactly. The pick six and the punt, the short field. I mean, that's momentum shifting. Like so they definitely didn't help themselves by doing either of those things. But
you weren't going to keep them off the board the whole game. You know that. Everybody knows that their offense is too good just to hold them completely scoreless. Even Georgia didn't do that.
Right.
So, but you can't give their offense extra chances. No, like that's the recipe for disaster.
Yeah. The pick six and the pick six tied the score, and then the block or the pick six tied the score. The drop punt snap ended up in the block kick, and it led to an Alabama field goal, not even a touchdown, but still, I mean, that's 10 points that ended up going to the Tide. And then later in the second half, they had a late hit that ended up giving Alabama another 15 yards and resulted in the touchdown. Another punt resulted in Alabama starting the drive at Oklahoma's 35. So that also resulted in touchdowns. So just a lot of mistakes. And then, as I mentioned, their kicker missed 2 field goals, and that also prevented any chance for them to win the game later on. So they made like a lot of different mistakes on special teams, on defense, but mainly on special teams and throwing that pick six and then missing the 2 field goals. So that definitely really cost them. But I really do feel like Oklahoma's offense needed to play better. I don't think this team was like really a recipe for success, like the way that they were. Like their defense was very solid, but we kind of knew that was what was carrying them pretty much the entire time. And when those things like started falling apart,
then you knew you're done.
Yeah, exactly. So like they started off really good, but then after the mistakes, their offense just did not have any life in them. To keep fighting, and that's I mean, I think they have to figure that side of the ball out, because I think like I said, the defense can only do so much, and in the first game it ended up winning it for them. But you can't keep relying on that. every single time, because it's hard to get turnovers, interceptions, like every single game. But that's felt like what was going on with Oklahoma. They were like literally winning games on the backs of their defense, and when they couldn't do it in this game, like everything fell apart for them. And that's kind of why they went home early. But like I said, was surprised Bama wasn't playing well. Oklahoma was kind of playing decently enough, and it was a home game. So I thought, and they beat Bama earlier this season. So I was like, okay, like the recipe's in place. Like sometimes when a team has a hold on a team, like those things do like tend to carry out, but sometimes they don't. Like, I mean, Ohio State beat Michigan this year. For like things like that, like don't always hold up perfectly. Like, Georgia beat Alabama this year. That's been something that's gone the other way for the longest of times, and obviously that flipped in dominant fashion. So this game, yeah, like I said, Oklahoma dominated early, but Alabama dominated the rest of the game. Oklahoma made mistakes upon mistakes upon mistakes, and once they did that, their offense was not good enough to really get them back in the game. They had like a moment of spark, but they weren't able to do it consistently, and like that's something that Alabama was able to do. Was move the ball, score touchdowns, and yeah, I mean, you keep that going for like the entire time, and that's why they were able to pull that game out, on the road.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, especially after getting spotted that many points. It's
Right. Yeah. They'd spotted them like 10 points, and Alabama basically only had 7 on their own. So after that, they have all the momentum, and then their offense is rolling in the second half, and OU is not. So I guess one play from this game that really stood out to me was Jimmy Bernard mossing the Oklahoma defender to make a catch, like grabbing it over his helmet. I mean, I thought that was just like that was insane. Like the way he caught it over his helmet and pulled it back. I was like, my goodness, like that needs to be like like Alabama fans like wallpapers or something. Like, I should ask my friend like Kapil, who used to do this podcast with me like way back when I first got started. But that catch was like spectacular. Yeah. So I mean, now the Crimson Tide will go out to Pasadena to face the Big Ten champions, #1 team in the country, the Indiana Hoosiers, and we'll get to that in a second. But that's going to be like a pristine Rose Bowl. I mean, Alabama was in the Rose Bowl a couple years ago against another big brand in Michigan, so quite the matchup there. But this year, Indiana, Alabama, color schemes. I mean, it's just going to be an interesting vibes all around. But yeah, I mean, moving forward to the second game of the playoff, we have Miami taking on Texas A&M. This was the one I was probably most excited about. It
boring.
was so boring. Like, I mean, I was watching this one at home, and it was 0-0 at the half. Limited offense, a defense heavy game, and even in the few spots where there
Mistake
were
heavy game. Mistake heavy
mistake heavy
game.
game, yeah, there's fumbles, there was like like
Missed
everything,
kicks,
missed kicks, like
interceptions.
multiple, like 4 missed kicks. Like, I mean, the wind was so windy. I mean, Miami missed 3 kicks. Texas A&M had a kick blocked. I mean, even when there was a little bit of offense, the missed kicks happened, so nobody could really score. And Miami played a horrible like offensive strategy because they kept running everything horizontally instead of vertically, and it went like nowhere. In the second half, they reoriented. They didn't really use their playmakers so much until the second half. A&M was just they're kind of trying to move down the field, but they kept like stalling out too. So they also just didn't have a lot of offensive success for the longest time. And yeah, I mean, final drive of the game. Well, eventually both teams got on the board with field goals. Final drive. Mark Fletcher, who ended up having a solid day on the ground, he had a 56-yard run. I think he finished with 172 yards of rushing. Malachi Tony also had a fumble earlier, gave A&M the ball, but they didn't convert. On the last drive, Beck hands it to Tony, who's an electric playmaker. He runs around the edge for a touchdown, and A&M gets the ball back. They have a chance to tie the game. They actually do move the ball pretty well, but once they get to the red zone, they get completely stalled out. I think Motoré was actually in on
That
one.
was Motoré.
Yeah,
Motoré was the one that lit up the receiver and made him drop the ball.
that was on second down, I think. Yeah.
Yeah, it was. It
Yeah,
was.
big incompletion
Missed him.
there. Yeah, and then 2 interceptions by Marcel Reed, both going to the same player, Bryce Fitzgerald, who actually I think came into the game because one of Miami's other players got injured, and he did an incredible job. I mean, making 2 picks. I mean, the second one was just kind of like Reed just kind of misread it and just threw it where Fitzgerald was standing in the end zone to get that interception. I kind of forgot what the first one was. exactly like. But I mean, it also is kind of another thing where Fitzgerald just jumped the route. Like Reed wasn't aiming in the right place. But either way, I mean, it's still pretty impressive for a freshman corner to be able to get 2 interceptions, second one sealing the game, and yeah, a really ugly game. I mean, I think people expected a lot of offense when you have A&M, you have Marcel Reed, you have like guys like Casey Concepcion, like some big playmakers on the Aggies. They have a good running back, Le'Veon Moss. Miami too, Carson Beck. You have Malachi Tony, you have Mark Fletcher. But yeah, I mean, not a lot of offense, a lot of defense, a lot of mistakes, very sloppy
I don't.
poor game, but it ended up with an exciting finish, I guess, and
I
obviously
would
very
say an
exciting.
exciting finish. I would say an exciting finish. However, I think everybody knows this. This was not a game between two contenders. It was a game between two pretenders.
Two
Because
pretenders. Yeah.
you best believe that when Miami goes to play Ohio State's going to light them up. You
Yeah,
know. So again,
100%.
two pretenders. Texas A&M looks soft at the end of the year. It's just kind of the same thing with um, Alabama, Oklahoma, two pretenders, and in reality, I don't see a true contender out of in this first round except for maybe Oregon,
Maybe Oregon. Yeah,
maybe
yeah, maybe.
big
And
maybe,
they look a
but
lot more realistic than any of these other teams. Like, I'll tell you that. Maybe Ole Miss too. I don't know, but
Ole Miss
definitely
doesn't have a head coach.
that's true. Yeah, definitely none of these in the first round. Maybe Oregon, I would say. I think Oregon looks pretty
They're a
decent, maybe.
long shot, but they're the only one in this first round that is a long shot.
Right, and that's why they're like the five. They're the five seed, and yeah. I mean, again, we'll get to the previews in a little later in the episode, but yeah. I mean, I guess to your point, about the Aggies, it was just like a really good season for them that came crashing down, but they also didn't really play a lot of tough competition. I mean, they beat Notre
They
Dame in the
lost to
beginning of the
Texas.
year.
They're probably
Yeah, they
kicking
lost
in the boots
the
about
one
that.
exactly. I mean, they really only played one good SEC team all season. I mean, they obviously in the beginning of the year they beat Notre Dame. They kind of scraped wins by against Auburn and Arkansas. Like, I don't know, SEC is such a weird conference where like the worst like teams like that are kind of in games, but but I mean even some of the better teams were like not that great, like Missouri, LSU, Florida, South Carolina. They needed a miraculous comeback to be, and then Samford, you have an FCS game, but then they lose the rivalry game to Texas. They were basically in first round bye position all season because of that. They don't get the first round bye. Longhorns end up getting the win, and then they have a home game in the playoff and they lose, and it's just like you had such a good season, and now
They
it's just
also lose
over.
against Miami,
Yeah,
who
Miami's no like yeah,
no,
I mean
it's not like Ohio State to Tennessee last year. Miami's not going anywhere. You know,
exactly, yeah. And Texas didn't make the playoff either, so it's just like it kind of shows where A&M really was as a team. They're definitely not really contenders. They were pretenders. They just looked really good all year because they were not really playing anyone that tough, other than I guess Notre Dame in the beginning of the season, which they won by one. But that Notre Dame team's also gotten better too. But like I mean, in the SEC, they didn't really play anybody. They didn't play any ranked teams until they played Texas. And we saw what
that's
happened when they played Texas and Miami. So I mean, yeah, I mean, going out with 3 points in front of the 100,000 crowd at at Kyle Field. I mean, just a really disappointing way to finish the season, and in front of one of the frenziest, most exciting environments in the sport. So, oh well. I mean, it's too bad. But again, and I don't even really have that much faith in Miami either. So, like to really
I
capitalize
don't.
on this either. Yeah, exactly. I don't think they're like a real contender either, and we've seen them lose
No,
games this season in the ACC. So they're definitely, yeah. I mean, they they're able to be an A&M team, which just really wasn't that good. But in terms of going forward, they're going to play a lot tougher competition. So we'll talk about how they will fare against Ohio State. I think we already kind of like alluded to it, but those were like the two more exciting games of the playoff or of the first round. The two that I think everybody was looking forward to. Thought that those could be good games and stuff like that. In some ways, they kind of were. Then we kind of move on to the later slate, which we have Ole Miss versus Tulane round 2 in Oxford. Not really even worth watching it. It's kind of what we expected. Even though, like, I mean, they Tulane kind of had more time to develop. They had more. Retzloff had more time to, develop chemistry with his receivers because he was a late transfer to the whole situation at BYU. I mean, Tulane got more time to prepare for Trinidad Chambliss, who back then was kind of making one of his first starts because their other quarterback got injured. I think like Hunter Simmons, or Austin
Yeah.
Simmons. Yeah, he ended up getting injured early in the season. Chambliss and Retzlaff are very similar quarterbacks in that they're both very dual threat heavy, actually. But it's just funny when you put when you, I guess, like when you have a much better O line and playmakers, like, it just looks a little bit different. But the way the two quarterbacks play is pretty similar, I will say. And even with all the head coaching changes, Pete Golding stepping in for Lane Kiffin, who's now at LSU. And then John Summerall obviously taking over maintaining his position at Tulane, even though he's also leaving to Florida. So a lot of things did change, but the result was very similar. It was 41-10. Previous one was 45-10. And I mean, it just wasn't really that competitive, but at the same time, it was weird because, I mean, it's not like they weren't able to move the ball. They were able to move the ball, but they just kept making mistakes. They couldn't finish drives. They kind of stalled out. They turned the ball over on downs, looking for sevens instead of threes. They weren't really able to finish drives in the first half. They trailed 17-3 at the half. Ole Miss scored very quickly. I mean, they were just like 1, 2, 3, like two touchdowns, like long plays galore. I mean, it was just, the Tulane just had no answer for, their quick playmakers. All like three of their different receivers had, I think, like over 100 yards or something, or they combined for over 100 yards, but they all had explosive plays. Their first drive, 2 passes and a run, 3 plays, 75 yards, and a touchdown in less than a minute. Second drive was 4 plays for 60 yards. So Ole Miss just proved their explosiveness on the offensive end. And on the defensive end, I mean, they didn't allow Tulane to get into the end zone until like very late in the game. So even though Tulane had decent amounts of success in the run game and the pass game, they just weren't really able to find the end zone. And Retzloff also made a lot of mistakes at the end of the game. He had I mean, in the second half, they had the ball. They were down 17-3. They punted, then they turned it over on downs. Then Retzloff lost 2 fumbles. So it's like any chance that they would have had to maybe get back in the game, they didn't. They kept messing up, and Ole Miss just took advantage of it, ran away with it, and that's pretty much all. That's pretty much how that one went. So it wasn't really worth watching because it was such a big mismatch.
Yeah, it was very boring. I mean, there was nothing really going on. Um,
It was like
especially
41-3 at one point. Like it was just not like an attractive like game.
Yeah, and like when they got up by that much, it was like, okay, mail it in. Tulane's done. It's not possible. Especially when they kept turning it over on downs, it just really got out of hand quickly, and it was
Yeah.
a very boring game to watch.
Yeah. They did end up turning it over like quite a bit on downs. Like it was just a weird like structure. I mean, Ole Miss was very like quick to score and very explosive, and Tulane was trying to like kind of like make it more like, yeah, Ole Miss was very explosive. Tulane was kind of trying to make it more methodical, but on the first drive, Retzloff actually moves the ball pretty well. Rushes for 16, and then he ends up throwing a pick deep inside their territory. Kind of just a bad read. He was under some pressure from Ole Miss. He ends up firing where the defender made a play. Then Ole Miss goes down, 4 plays, 60 yards, touchdown. It's 14-0. Then Tulane turns it over on downs despite having some success on the drive. Then Ole Miss punts, and then Tulane gets a field goal, and then they kind of both stall a little bit. But in the second half, it was again Tulane kept either punting or turning it over on downs, despite having a little bit of success. So even though it was only 17-3 at the half, like they come out of the locker room, it's punt, it's a turnover on downs, and then Retzloff loses 2 fumbles on back-to-back possessions. By this time, it's already 27-3. So there's just like nothing, like nothing doing for the Green Wave really. So and then later on they end up scoring a touchdown, but it was kind of like in garbage time, so it didn't really matter. And then Tulane or Ole Miss ended up kind of just running out the clock. But it just, yeah, it wasn't even like really like a competitive game in any way, shape, or form. But I guess that's, I don't know. It's kind of like a tough it's a tough sell, honestly, because it really sucks because it's like even when a team like is good enough to beat other Power 4 teams, which is very rare with a group of 5, Like, like maybe you could beat some like FBS, Power Four teams, but to be able to beat good ones like the way Tulane did, like decent ones like Northwestern, Duke, who won the ACC championship, they look like
Well,
Tulane's,
dude,
probably like one of your closest group of five teams to a Power Four team, and even then, there's like such a big difference between that and like a
yeah, but
champ.
you want to talk about okay? You want to talk about let's say we put Tulane in. Let's say we just decide to get rid of the group of five, and all of a sudden say that they can't participate in the playoffs. Who was going to take their place? It wasn't going to be Notre Dame because Notre Dame's not a conference champion. If Notre Dame wants the
True.
benefit of being a conference champion,
Then
join
they
a
can join the
conference.
conference.
It's
Yeah,
it's enough with this princess treatment, enough with this special treatment. Everybody else is in a conference. Join a conference, or this is going to keep happening, and that's it. And you can cry and complain in the corner all you want, because
yeah,
you want to talk about like tough scheduling with Notre Dame. You want to talk about all that other crap. They play an ACC schedule, which the ACC was hot garbage this year. They have protected rivalry games against Navy. Oh yeah, big scary Navy over there.
right.
Sorry, join a
Yeah, they played like
conference, play a
a
normal
really,
schedule. That's it. These rivalries mean nothing because they're not rivalries. Rivalries are competitive. Rivalries are back and forth. The last
right.
time Navy beat you was like 70 years ago. It's not a
Yeah, well,
rivalry.
that's
It
the
means
joke.
nothing. That's it. You know,
Yeah,
like
yeah,
it's not a rivalry if the other team doesn't beat you. There has to
I
be
agree.
hatred for it to be a rivalry. You know, hatred. Where you want to beat this team more than you want to win the national championship. Maybe
Right.
not that
Right.
far, but you don't see it
Something.
as a good season if you don't beat this team. That's a rivalry. Navy is not your rival. You beat them every year. So enough with this history and protected rivalries and historically independent. Join a conference. Stop acting like a little child, essentially, unless you want to keep getting snubbed from the playoffs because
Yeah, 100%.
you know everybody else plays a conference. Everybody else subjects themselves to that. Everybody else suggests themselves to that schedule. You're not special. You're not a bigger brand than Alabama, Ohio State, Michigan.
Exactly.
Maybe you were back in the day, not anymore.
Not
So it's
anymore.
time to join a conference, time to realize that you are not on top of the world anymore. And that's it, you know? So Notre Dame was
Yeah.
not going to get in if the group of five was left out. Do you really think that 7-5 Duke was going to do a better job at playing Old Miss
Almost. I
than
don't.
Tulane,
That's the thing. I don't
the
because
team they
Tulane already.
lost to?
Yeah, that's like the yeah. So it's not even a group of five problem. It's like
It's an ACC problem.
yeah. I mean, if the ACC
ACC
is going to be even worse than this team, like Tulane, like like I mean, you can't even say oh well they do a better. Who probably would have done a better job was Miami, but even they would have not been anywhere near like this level either. But I mean, that would have probably been the one team that might But that's I don't know. They lost tiebreakers. Like Miami also lost to like SMU and some other team that like made them look like
Louisville.
yeah, exactly, right. So it's just yeah, the tiebreakers were completely wonky, but I don't think anyone in the ACC really would have been able to compete. Like even if Virginia ended up winning the championship, going to Ole Miss, like I don't think that would have ended well for them. Would it have ended this bad? I don't think so because I mean they were a pretty
But
decent
then
team.
again, Duke lost. I mean, Virginia lost to that Duke team.
Yeah, they
If they were
did.
better than
So.
that Duke team, they would have beat that Duke team.
I think they beat
You
them in
know.
the regular season, but then they lost in the ACC
Well, if
championship.
you're the better team, you would have beat them again. I'm
Yeah,
sorry. That's
and even
how
if
it
they were
works.
the better team than Duke, that like it just that doesn't really say a lot. Like even Tulane was better than Duke slightly. Again, it just didn't really matter against Ole Miss. Like the thing is, yeah, I mean Ole Miss, like the teams that Tulane beat, like Duke and Northwestern, like none of those teams would have been remotely competitive with Ole Miss just because they're a Power Four. It just sucks that like even when you have a group of five team who literally is kind of built like a Power Four team, they
No,
have like
but you want to
transfers
you want
coming
to talk
in
you
and
want to talk
everything
about
like
all this
that.
group of
Still not good
you,
enough.
you want to talk about all this group of five nonsense. You want to talk about let's talk about this, okay? The ACC and the Big 12 are not on the same level as the SEC and the Big 10. You want to talk about all this group of five nonsense? Okay, What if we had a group of 5 team versus an ACC team in the playoff? They've already proven they can beat their conference champion.
Right,
Your
sure.
conference champion went 7-5 in the
You know,
regular
that's
season.
that's a
That
joke, honestly. Yeah,
should not happen. No way. But the
yeah,
ACC was so crap this year. And yes, I understand that Miami won a playoff game, but they beat an imploding Texas A&M team. When Miami goes to play Ohio State, they're probably going to lose by 30 because
yeah,
that is the difference between somebody that should have been in the ACC championship but wasn't because that conference sucks, you know, versus a team that was in the Big Ten championship. It's the same thing. At the end of the day, it is going to be Big Ten versus SEC, and that's how it's going to be until either the Big 12 gets its act together or the ACC starts playing real football because this is a complete
yeah.
joke.
Yeah, I mean, it's really like on the ACC, like what happened because I mean, there's like no reason why. I mean, your group of 5 champions, like you have 2 G5 teams that are better than your ACC champion. Like that's really on the ACC for allowing that ridiculous
I'll
situation to
take
happen in the
James
first place.
Madison over Duke. I'll take James Madison over Duke.
Yeah.
Like
Exactly. It's just like that's how bad. Like if you think these were bad, like imagine that you had like Duke in there and they lose even worse. Like it would have just been like, yeah. I mean, it's really on the ACC for allowing this ridiculous situation to happen where you have these types of games and saying that those same teams that got blown out are still better than you. And like I mean that's really not anyone's fault than the ACC for allowing that ridiculous situation to take place. But I mean, again, I guess there's a difference between good group of 5 teams that can beat Power Fours and versus beating like a team like Ole Miss, which requires like a whole different level of something
because
that most
the Big
honestly most
Ten
power teams don't have what it takes to beat a team like Ole Miss like either.
because
So
the Big Ten and the SEC are on two different levels of playing. You know damn well that 5-7 Rutgers, if they were in the ACC, would have at least
it would
been
have
eight
won
and
like
four. At
yeah. But that
least been
sucks
eight
because I
and
love
four.
to think that Rutgers isn't such a great team, but compared to the ACC now, like I mean, yeah, I
At
mean,
least 8-4.
right?
And
Like
we
look
were
at like the ACC has teams like Syracuse, Boston College. Like it's like I mean those teams are like
scrubs.
hot garbage. Exactly. Like that's why as bad as Rutgers does in the Big Ten, painful. But like they end up beating teams in the ACC more often than they don't, or in fact almost always because end up playing the bottom teams and. Even if they're not the bottom teams, they're just not that great. Like Virginia Tech beat them
Well,
twice. Boston College.
Virginia Tech was like what 8-4 last year.
No, they were pretty bad. That's why they fired their coach. They
No,
lost to,
no,
like,
not
Old
not this
Dominion.
year. Last year,
Oh, I think
they
they were, like,
were
6-6 or 7-5 or they're also, like, in the
they were
middle.
a bowl team.
They were
You
a bowl
know,
team, yeah. Because, again,
like
it's ACC.
and also, you want to talk about that. How about the fact that Rutgers was for the longest time the absolute bottom of the Big Ten, and yet, you know,
And they still won that
in the
game.
first ugly years under Shiano, they still go and beat, your Boston colleges and whatnot, and the
Right. Yeah.
Syracuses. We beat Syracuse with Chris Ash as the head coach.
Like,
Okay,
that's embarrassing.
Exactly. And at this point, you want to talk about conference realignment and whatnot. The ACC is the next on the chopping block. I don't care what anybody else says. That conference is so crap and so poorly ran that they're the next on the chopping block.
Yeah. Well, it seems like we're kinda having our G5 debate right now, so why don't we just finish that first, and then we'll go on to the Oregon game because, so I guess what is the
Well,
solution
no.
to, like, this
Well, first of
problem?
all, I think we're going to do the Oregon at the same time because James Madison was in the Oregon game, and
That's true.
let's not pretend that James Madison, couldn't do anything against Oregon. They did. They put up 30 points.
Yeah, the most of anybody all season against Oregon. They had over 500 yards of offense. They had 34 points. Now, a lot of that was most of that was in the second half. I don't know. I think Oregon took out their starters for a while, but still, I mean, they
That
put up
doesn't
all
make
those
any
points.
sense. Why I don't think Oregon would do that. Unless they confirmed did it, I don't think they would do that.
I think they
You
did in
know,
like the fourth quarter, and then they ended up putting them back. I don't exactly 100% remember, but I know they
well,
took
they
their
put them
foot off
back.
the gas
That's the
like quite a
thing.
bit.
they put him back because James Madison ended up drawing close.
Yeah, I mean, it was a weird, like, the game was basically like, I mean, they scored touchdowns in their first 5 possessions. So they took a big lead. They went up like 34-3, and then after that, yeah, so
And then I
yeah, yeah.
believe James Madison scored 21 in the third quarter. I could be
Yeah, it
wrong
was
there.
34-6, and then James Madison ended up climbing all the way kind of back. They ended up scoring a lot of garbage time touchdowns, and just, but I mean, still, like, I mean, I don't know if they even did pull the starters either. I thought they did for a while,
Yeah, I didn't see that.
but yeah, I mean, Oregon was just not happy with the way that second half went because they did not play, they did not play good. They did not hold James Madison out of, they kind of allowed them to almost come back in the game, and they ended up outscoring Oregon 28-17 in the second half. So I mean, that clearly means that Oregon kind of took off they took off their foot off the gas pedal, and that obviously wasn't something that they were really proud of. They want to be able to play that way for the full game. They basically kind of, same thing with Tulane. Like, James Madison had a kind of a decent amount of success moving the ball on offense in the first half, weren't able to get the ball in the end zone. Oregon was just like Ole Miss, very quick strike. I mean, Dante Moore was throwing the ball on a rope. Their playmakers were making incredible catches deep. They were just burning them. Deer Hill had a long touchdown run. It kind of looked like the game against Rutgers, except for James Madison's defense was a lot better, and at least making them work for the touchdowns that they were getting. But they were just too fast, too big, too
Well,
strong,
they were
especially too
schemed right. It
fast.
was just a
And
talent difference. But
yeah,
just to kind of combine, everything that we're talking about. Obviously, we really can't state anymore that yes, Oregon got up to the lead early, but they left the game frustrated. They did not leave the game satisfied. But you
right.
want to talk about this whole, G5 thing and whatnot and all this other. Okay, let's look at this. Texas A&M didn't score a touchdown. Did they deserve to be there? Yes, they had the record to. You
Right.
know, like in reality, Tulane played better than Texas A&M did.
They probably
You know,
did. Yeah.
James Madison played better than Texas
Well,
A&M
they
did. But
100% did. Yeah.
Texas A&M didn't deserve to be there because they didn't score a touchdown. Give me a break. Look at Ohio State, Tennessee last year. Did Tennessee deserve to be there because they got blown out? Maybe we should question if the SEC deserves to be in the college football playoff. You know, I don't mean to sound like so like outrageous about this, but blowouts are going to happen.
Yeah.
Team college
That's
football
true.
playoff, blowouts are going to happen. Are you going to tell the Boise State team that beat Oklahoma in the Fiesta Bowl? Let's say we have that this year, that they don't deserve to compete for a national title. Are you gonna tell me that the UCF team that went undefeated and beat a pretty good Florida team in I believe 2017, that they don't deserve to compete for a national title in a 12-team college football playoff? In a 4-team college football playoff, that's one thing, but in a 12-team, come on, you know. If you're going to tell that 1980s BYU team, who was in the group of 5 at the time, who won a national championship or was named national championship, that they don't deserve to go and test their mettle and prove that they are national champions? Come on. Blowouts are going to happen. They happened last year with Power 4 teams blowing
Yeah.
out Power 4 teams.
Yeah, like Clemson,
Give
well, not
me
Clemson, yes, Penn State and SMU and Ohio State, Tennessee, like, all those games were pretty ugly. I mean, even Texas, Clemson, like, yeah, there wasn't Indiana, Notre Dame. I mean, those are all Power 4 teams going against other Power Conference teams, and like or Notre Dame, which is an equivalent, and that, yeah, you're right. I mean, blowouts do happen in the first round in a lot of sports, really. I mean, look at the NBA or the
even in the
NHL.
NFL. You know,
Yeah,
how many times have the Steelers backdoored their way into the playoffs and then get absolutely obliterated by somebody like Buffalo? That happens like every
every
single
year.
year.
Yeah.
You know, like blowouts happen in the first round. But here's the solution: how about one rep for the G5? Just one.
This one,
Pick the
yeah,
best team in the
I agree
traditional
with
group
that.
of 5. And that's it.
Yeah, and I think that's where it's going next year because apparently like they signed an agreement saying the four power conference champions are guaranteed to be in the field, and no matter where they are in the rankings, so they're not gonna have another 2G5 thing again, and also Notre Dame ends up getting a bid if they're in the
Yeah,
top
that Notre
12 as
Dame thing
well.
is nonsense. They
That
should
is
have to earn
ridiculous.
it.
Yeah, I mean because they don't play in a conference.
Special treatment for the Irish again.
But I
You
mean,
know,
if they're in the top 12 in the rankings, and I mean, I guess it kind of makes sense, right? Like it's like if they're at that level, they're not saying if they're
no.
15 they make it to the
First of
playoff.
all, it wasn't even top 12. It was top 14.
I think it's if it goes to 14, it becomes 14, and then if it's 12, it's 12. I think, but
But again, why should Notre Dame be getting special treatment for being out, for not being in a conference and not having to play in that conference championship game? I know I'm like pounding my fist a little bit, but
yeah,
it's no special treatment.
no
That's
special.
it. No team gets special treatment.
Yeah, I mean, they shouldn't just because they're Notre Dame, they shouldn't just be guaranteed a spot for, no other team's guaranteed a spot for just, just
They
existing.
have to
Like,
play
I
one
mean,
less game. They have to play one less game, you know? And
exactly. I
as
guess they
much
just
as
don't
I
want,
agree that
yeah,
Notre Dame should have been in this year because
they should have
Alabama should have been penalized for
for
losing the
losing the
conference
conference
championship.
championship, but they
However,
didn't do that.
Notre Dame just as well deserves to be penalized for not playing in one, you know? It's one
Right.
less
Or never
competitive game
playing
that they're
anyone.
playing.
Exactly. They get to make their own soft schedule. They play teams like Purdue and Arkansas, like, and the ACC, like Boston College and Syracuse and
Navy,
Navy. I mean,
yeah.
yeah, it's a joke. And then they complain because they lost their only two like big games of the season in the beginning and like, oh,
I
we
mean,
should
they
have
did
been
beat
over.
USC, which was not a
That's
bad
true.
win.
Yeah, that was
That's
pretty
it.
good. But yeah, I mean, oh, we should have been, A&M and Miami look like hot garbage, and we should have been in because we would have beaten them now. Like, well, you had your chance to beat them. Like, I don't know. Like, yeah. I mean, it's weird, but they're trying to, I guess, prevent any more slips. I mean, they don't want Notre Dame complaining again. They don't want Power Four complaining. Oh, look what happened. So they're kind of just taking off all the. But I think I agree. I think like having one G5 team is fair. I think that's a good incentive for the G5 too to get a team in the playoff. But yeah, I don't think they should just take it out. But I mean, having two in there and then having results like this is it's kind of hard to justify. Like and I don't think there's gonna really be another year where your conference champion, the ACC, ends up this bad. Like I think that was also kind of an anomaly as well. So just kind of like a lot of things ended up resulting in it the way it was. But in the format that was there, that's what happened. So I mean, it's just I think they're just preventing future instances of that. And I think yeah, having a G5 out of it is good. I mean, like I think it should be one. I mean, there are G5 teams that have deserved it in the past, like Cincinnati making in the 14 playoff, completely deserved. Boise State last year deserved. Even they couldn't 100% really hang either, but they were a lot more competitive, and their records really proved that they deserved it. Their rankings are high enough. I don't know. I feel like they should be like they should have a minimum ranking too, though. Like if we're gonna do all this with like Notre Dame, like they should also have like some sort of minimum ranking because to have like a team barely be ranked and squeak in and then like get blown out, like I don't know. I don't know if that really like sits right with me, but like if it is, then I would say like have one. That I think is justifiable. Have them be the 12th seed, whatever. But like having two, it just gets to be like a little like like
It's
I
not
don't know.
competitive. It's
Yeah,
nonsensical.
it's not
You know,
competitive, and we want competitive games. So I would recommend like having like a minimum standard for like what your G5 team should be to ensure competitiveness. But if you're not going to do that, then at least like limit it to one. I think that's fair. It gives the G5 an incentive, and it also like it doesn't dilute the field to the point where you have multiple non-competitive games in the first round by design. Like I think Tulane, the way they were, probably should get in. James Madison also though, like and this year it's like it might be a little bit of an exception, but I don't know. Like I'd say I have one in there. Allows for another Power Four spot, still allows the G5 to get in. And yeah, I mean, I think that's probably where that goes in the future. But it's a little unfortunate because it's just like I was kind of hoping the G5 teams would at least kind of somewhat hold their own, and I guess James Madison kind of did in a way, but it was just
I mean,
like
James Madison didn't just let Oregon like completely
walk all
mess.
over them.
But you want to point this out. Texas A&M and Tulane have the same amount of college football playoff experiences, but which one has a touchdown in the college football playoff? You know,
Yeah. I'd say A
it's
and M
like,
like embarrassed themselves as much as the G5 teams did. Like, I mean,
yeah,
scoring
and that's
20
that's
points
the
in the
thing.
playoff
That's the
game.
thing. I feel like the G5 argument is going to take away from the fact that A&M completely embarrassed themselves and their fan base today. Not today, but on
Yeah,
Saturday.
on Saturday in
That's the
front of
thing that
all
people should be.
100,000 of them. Like, yeah, that was just disappointing to see. Like, at a stadium like that, opportunity like that, and you're the better team. Miami's a team that everyone's debating. Oh, should they have gotten in? And like, this is what you do with your spot. Like, it's just like
Oh, and Notre
a
Dame
waste.
must be kicking themselves because they were in the conversation with Alabama and Miami for who deserved to be in, and
Both of
both of
them
them
won.
proved that both of them won.
Yeah, so
So
now they
Notre
don't
Dame's
really
got to
have
be
like much
kicking
of
themselves.
an argument there anymore.
Yeah.
So yeah, they don't really have much of an argument in the head-to-heads. So now, like, the only thing they could probably say is like, well, the G5, I guess. But like, I mean, but yeah,
Hmm.
yeah. Anyway, so it looks like, I don't know. Looks like it's like every year, like the system isn't going to be perfect. But we went from the BCS to the 14 playoff. Nobody liked that because it was basically like an invitational. So now you have like a 12-team playoff, and it's a bit more fair. But there's
I
always
think
going to
it
be
should be
like,
an 18 playoff, but that's just me.
yeah, maybe it should have been an 8 team, honestly. I think that would have been. It's just like whatever number you have is just there's always going to be problems. Like the first year they had automatic buys for the conference champions, and it's like Boise State got a buy, Arizona State got a buy, and we're like, what are we doing? So then this year they fixed
Well,
that.
Arizona State proved their mettle.
They did.
You can't say anything about Arizona State. They proved that they should have been there by taking Texas. They
They
had
took
Texas on
Texas
the
to the
ropes.
wire. Yeah, you're right. But I feel
And they
like
and they had they like it wasn't for a couple bad calls. There was a very good chance that Arizona State would have won that game.
that's true, but I mean,
Yeah,
I'm liking the straight seeding model because it still allows all the conference champions to get in, but it doesn't force them into. Because this year, what would have happened if we had straight seeding was that Tulane would have gotten a bye, you know what I mean?
yeah,
Like, yeah, so like
yeah.
we don't want that happening, like you know what I mean. So that would have just been a little like Boise State. I kind of still deserved it in a way, I would say, but like that was a different situation than like this year. Like the Tulane would have gone to bye. Um, it would have been all conference champions. So Ohio State would have not been a bye team. It would have been like Indiana, Texas Tech. I forgot who else was
No,
even in.
Texas Tech wouldn't have been the bye
No,
team.
it would have. They would have because it would have been a conference. It would have been Indiana, Georgia, Texas Tech, and Tulane at the having the
Oh
buys,
yeah,
and then it would have been like Ohio State. You go on from there, right? But like, I mean,
yeah,
it would have been, yeah. So I mean, they changed that. They fixed. It's like every year they kind of fix something. There's tweaking, but we're as this goes, like, so now they have the Notre Dame rule, I guess, for whatever you want to think about that. They're trying to get the group of five thing straightened out so that doesn't happen again. So it's like they're kind of working it out. But I mean, it's college sports. Like things are going to be imperfect sometimes. Like you have to work out the kinks in the system. And, like you can't just hope everything works out the same way. And there are going to be mistakes in the process. And as long as it doesn't take away from a good playoff, like I don't really think that's a problem. Like yeah, I mean we had two G5 teams in the playoff this year. It was fun. Maybe it's not something you want to do again, but like things like that happen, right? You just if those are the rules at the time, you have to embrace them. You have to refigure it out and move forward. Like that's what we did last year at the street seating, right? Like we were wondering what was going on there. They fixed it, so it's just like these things are going to keep happening. Like I mean there's no perfect system, and even if there is, it's going to take like more years to figure that out what that is. But I think all the progress we've made to go from 2 teams to a 4 team to a 12 team to trying to make the best 12 teams, like we're doing the work. Like like it's not going to be perfect
yeah.
in one shot. So don't let that take away from like all the excitement of the playoff is like I guess my point in this. But
Yep.
we'll figure it out. Like we'll get there. But now I think things are going to get really exciting with the CFP though, like with the
Yeah, we
cold.
will get there. Don't you
Now we
worry.
will get there. It's yeah, exactly, like a little Rutgersy, like we'll get there, like type of thing. But anyway, so
Incremental improvement of the process over time.
yeah, exactly. But I guess, it was a big weekend around college football too. I mean, all the, a lot of excitement going on in like D2, D3, especially the FCS, like the FCS semifinals. The national championship is set there. I don't know, the Tulane-Ole Miss game was kind of a big blowout. I ended up watching, a bit of Montana State towards the end. Definitely exciting football. That game, the Brawl of the Wild rivalry game, tickets were going up for like above $600. There was a lot of demand for that game, and it definitely delivered. Because Montana State built a 20-3 lead, and then Montana scored the next 20 points. But then Montana State scored like the next 28. They just completely dominated both sides of the ball. Pass rush was getting there. I mean, their quarterback threw a ridiculous touchdown under pressure on a
Yeah,
third down and
that was
20.
that was a beauty ball.
I know. He was like under pressure. He throws it off his back foot, finds the receiver, and receiver does the rest, scores a touchdown. Like an 80-yard touchdown, and it was just like something ridiculous. And Montana State gets out of a jam, and from there the momentum just swung in their favor, and they scored like, then their defense got in and heavy. They got the ball back, then they scored another touchdown. It was just a lopsided game the rest of the way out, but I mean, it was just, I don't know, yeah, really impressive win by Montana State. Big rivalry game. Both of those two teams have been pretty good over the last few years. I think Montana State's been better. They've beaten Montana in the regular season. This year, I think they've been closer to the championship. They've lost to teams like South Dakota State, North Dakota State, but this year, SCS playoffs kind of been a little wrecked. I mean, SDSU didn't make it. NDSU, they lost to the other team that's in the championship in Illinois State. And if you saw like what happened in that game, that was even crazier because North Dakota State was up 2 touchdowns. Illinois State comes back in like the final 2 minutes. It was like, I think they had like an onside kick or something like that, but it was just like miraculous finish. They get the 2-point conversion, and they beat the Bison, which is the top team in college football in the FCS level. So they're like, they're like in Alabama of like the FCS basically, or like your Ohio State or whatever. They're your dynasty, and like, they beat them. They also beat other teams. They beat Southeastern Louisiana, then they beat NDSU, then they beat UC Davis, and then they beat Villanova 30-14 in the semifinals. So Illinois State, who's a unseeded team in the FCS, ends up going on a miraculous run all on the road, and advances to the championship, which is just like really unheard of. I mean, like, you know what I mean? It'd be like the equivalent of like probably like your Tulane or JMU, like going on the road, playing all these big teams in bowl games, beating them, making the championship. Like, it's just like, it's something like that. Maybe not as severe because there's probably isn't as big of a talent level, but still, I mean, that's really impressive what they did. And now they have one more in Montana State. So Montana State's obviously going to be the better, like the favorite. But after the run that, like, Illinois State's had, like, I don't know, like, I'm not too sure what's going to happen. Montana State has not won the championship since 1984, but they came close. They lost to North Dakota State in 2 different seasons recently, 21 and 24, and last year they only lost by 3, so they've been knocking on that door for a while. Illinois State, they made the championship in 2014. They have not won one yet, but they've not really been in the conversation since then either. So it's kind of like, it's almost like FCS version of like
We're gonna get a
David.
new face, right?
Huh?
We're gonna get a new face.
Yeah, because last 4 years
Champion.
it's been like North Dakota State won in 21. I think it was like 38-10 over Montana State. And then South Dakota State went on a glorious run of their own from 22 to 23, won to back-to-back FCS championships, blew NDSU and Montana. And then North Dakota State ended up taking the mantle back last year, knocking off Montana State. So it's been like the Dakotas the whole time, but this year, like, maybe Montana has something to say about that, I guess, or Montana State, but they have to go through Cinderella, I guess. So it's just like,
Yeah.
yeah, it's interesting, right? It's just like I said, it's like your David versus Goliath, like FCS types matchup, I guess, except for
I wouldn't even call it that because I wouldn't call Montana State a
that's
Goliath.
true. They're not
You
like
know,
exactly like
taking
your
down
North Dakota.
taking down North Dakota State was the big deal.
Yeah, that was, I
That
guess, one of
was
the
slaying the
biggest one.
dragon.
That's true. That
That
was,
was
yeah.
slaying the dragon.
Right. So now it's yeah, for Illinois State, they beat the best team in FCS football. So now they're kind of like, okay, they're not going to be intimidated. I mean, they played 4 road games, they won each of them, but Montana State, like I said, they've been knocking on the door. They've they almost won a national championship last year. They lost to North Dakota State. So they've been one of the best teams in the sport. I mean, and then in 21 also they lost to NDSU by like a little bit more than that. But at the same time, they haven't gotten over the hump themselves either. So yeah, I mean they haven't quite gotten over the hump, but they've been pretty close. So we'll see. I mean we'll see we'll see what happens. But I think it should be a good FCS championship game.
Yeah.
Yeah, it definitely
No,
should be.
definitely. Especially if they had the storylines going into it. Um,
Yeah,
Personally, I am kind of hoping that Montana State gets over the top. I do think that if there's one thing that's near and dear to the people that live in the Dakotas, because they don't get a lot of attention from the college football world as a whole. I mean, the Dakotas, Wyoming, I would say a little bit,
right.
Montana definitely. All those states up there, they're almost completely ignored on the college football stage. I do like the fact that they do have some FCS dynasties to call their own. I'm
Yeah.
hoping that Montana State takes home the win.
Yeah. It would be nice to see them get over the hump because, like I said, it's like and North Dakota State and South Dakota State have kind of been dominating, especially North Dakota State even more than South Dakota State. Like, so the fact that they lost, and Montana State's been knocking on the door. I like to see them get there. It would be really cool if Illinois State it goes all the way and completes the ultimate Cinderella run because they already beat North Dakota State, and if they can get a championship on top of that, would be really cool to see like an unseeded team do that. Like I said, that would kind of be like somewhat similar to like if Tulane or James Madison went on like a run and beat every single blue blood. But I feel like that would probably be that much harder than this. But this is still pretty impressive in its own right. So if they could finish, it'll be nice. If Montana State can get over the hump, they definitely deserve it too. But yeah, it should be a good game. That championship game is going to be in January, um, Monday, January 5th, 7:30 p.m. So instead of the Monday night football slot, in week 17, because there is none, that's going to be filling that time slot. Usually FCS championship game is a day game, but I think they have moved it to the night now for the last couple seasons. So that should be exciting. I remember watching the FCS championship last year as well, where NDSU beat Montana State. So it's always good football. I mean, it's definitely enjoying. It's really fun to watch, and they've kind of been the master of having an expanded bracket for the longest time, and it's definitely been a lot of fun and definitely very exciting. And usually the best teams do come to the top of it. So the FBS is kind of picking up where the FCS has done a really good job with their playoff tournament. And yeah, I mean it should be exciting. But I guess to conclude this episode, we're gonna go in more in depth next week, because the New Year's playoff games don't happen until New Year's, which is like Wednesday and Thursday. Wednesday New Year's Eve, Thursday New Year's Day next week. So there's kind of a bit of an extended break. So next week, probably I would say maybe Monday, around Monday or so, we could do a preview in detail of these four matchups. But I guess just your early thoughts on this 4 game slate. And I guess we kind of already talked about it, but we have 4 juicy matchups. I mean, Miami coming off their win, taking on the Ohio State. I mean, that's probably the biggest spread of the at 9.5. The Ohio State, trying to bounce back from their loss to Indiana, probably the one team that could beat them, and they did. So, that should be Ohio State, playing now with a chip on their shoulder against a Miami team. I think we kind of know what way that's going to go. But then you have the Orange Bowl, very exciting. Oregon taking on Texas Tech, 1.5 point spread. The Ducks are favored. I mean, both of those teams are explosive, physical.
Yeah,
Texas Tech is like no slouch, by the way. I mean, they are very physical,
that
very
pass
good.
rush is nasty.
Pass rush is nasty. I mean, yeah, they have like a gigantic defensive. They like completely wrecked havoc on BYU. So this is going to be no easy game for Oregon. It just shows like what money can really buy you, and how far like a team can come in one year. But that's going to be a very even matchup on the football field. I'm very excited to see how Oregon versus Tech goes, because I mean I feel like Tech's going to have something to say with Oregon's offensive line, and that could impact more in his ability to throw deep shots. But yeah, I mean that's going to be a good one. Indiana taking on Alabama. I use a 6.5 point favorite. Alabama coming off the resurgent win over Oklahoma. Kind of a red on red color scheme matchup in the Rose Bowl. Kind of like a new blood versus the old guard there in terms of the blue blood matchup. Alabama returning for the first time since they lost to Michigan in that Rose Bowl, and Indiana probably their first time ever, if I'm not mistaken, going to the Rose Bowl. So I mean,
It has
you
to
know,
be.
yeah, I don't remember them like ever winning the Big Ten championship. And Sugar Bowl, I mean, Georgia taking on Ole Miss. This one has all the makings of a good game. SEC matchup. The Dogs are 6.5 point favorites. I'm hoping the Rebels can get through them. I don't know, but like it would be nice. But I mean, we'll see. But I mean, that should be an exciting matchup. I mean, we just kind of had a rematch of Ole Miss Tulane, and they got through that one. But the one loss that Ole Miss had was to Georgia the first time around. That was at Georgia Stadium, but this time could be a little different. I don't know. We'll see. I mean, both of those teams are physical. Georgia's probably a little bit more physical and even more talented than Ole Miss, but they could slow down that explosive Ole Miss offense. But last year, or in the regular season game, Ole Miss had a 9 point lead, and then Georgia scored like the next like 18 points or something the fourth quarter. So I don't know. I think we're in the makings for another high scoring game in New Orleans. But yeah, I mean that's pretty much, this is when things get good. I think each of these games are going to be very good. But I guess what are your your feelings on each of the four of these, like I just did?
Well, I will tell you this right now. I think the Big Ten has a very juicy opportunity to completely stack the deck against whoever comes out of that Ole Miss Georgia game.
Ooh,
Obviously, I wouldn't. I think that actually could be the most interesting game of the day. That Ole Miss Georgia game, because
yeah, that's
even though
Ole
Ole
Miss.
Miss lost in the regular season, they weren't blown out. I believe it was only a one-score game, maybe a
I think
nine-point
so.
game.
I think it was like an eight
Um,
point game or something like that.
yeah, one score game. You know,
Yeah,
um, I I'm still of the belief that Alabama would not have gotten past Oklahoma if Oklahoma did not hand them 10 points. I'm still of the belief that Alabama does not deserve to be here. I don't think Indiana's gonna. I don't think Indiana is gonna have much trouble dealing with the Crimson Tide. And I
I
understand the Crimson Tide have been here before; they've done it before. I just don't see it. You know,
yeah,
um,
not this year.
from from the Ohio State perspective, Miami's done.
Yeah,
Like they
they're
they,
yeah, good luck.
they got the maybe they could have done something if they got paired up against Texas Tech. They're done. Like you know, they're running into the brick wall there. And then
Yeah,
Texas Tech, Oregon. You know,
that honestly might be like the most intriguing one of the bunch now that I think about
it's
it.
either
Like
that or Old Miss is going to be the most
almost Georgia's
interesting.
gonna be good, but I'm really like intrigued to see like how Oregon and Texas Tech match up, because those two teams are both like dark horses. Like nobody really knows if you could trust them on the next level, but they're both very evenly matched. And I don't know. I really think that one could go either way. I think the other
I
three, like,
agree with you there. I give the slight edge to Oregon in terms of talent and just playoff experience.
yeah,
You know,
true. They've had definitely
but
had more of it now.
they have more. They do have more playoff experience, so I might give a little bit of an edge to them there.
Yeah.
But like I said, this is a very juicy opportunity for the Big Ten to absolutely stack the deck in terms
Yeah,
of
having three of the
uh,
four semi participants like in the next round.
the Big Ten for a while has been trying to prove it's on the same level as the SEC. I think it is, but to prove it nationwide, you need to do something like this. You need to do
Yeah.
something in the college football playoff where you, because there was I believe 2 years where the college football national championship was SEC versus SEC. You want to prove that you're on what was the SEC's level. Absolutely stack the deck in the Final Four. Have 3 out of the 4 teams
Oh,
in the Final Four. That would,
man.
first of all, that would drive SEC heads mad. I would probably see something growing out of Paul Feinbaum's head.
I mean, can you imagine? Like,
Yeah, exactly. He'd be so pissed, which I would live for. I would live
yeah,
for
it would
that.
be. Yeah, he wouldn't be able to say like anything at that point. It would be really nice for sure, for sure.
But yeah, I really do think that there's a very good chance that all the Big Ten teams are going to sweep their opponents because I don't
Yeah,
see it from Alabama.
nope,
Miami, Miami
absolutely
is
not.
done. They're
I mean,
done.
yeah, yeah.
They're
Like they have
running
a
into
good
the brick
defense,
wall.
kind of, but like, I mean, they're nowhere near as good as Ohio State's defense. And people are saying that they could slow down the Buckeyes. Like, I don't think they really can
Yeah,
slow
you
them
might be
down
able to
that much.
slow them down, but can you get going? That's another
No,
question.
and absolutely not. And they could barely get going against Texas A&M. So like, you know.
And that Buckeye defense is for real, you
Oh,
know.
they're so good. I mean, the only way you could beat them is by having an equally ferocious defense and a better offense, which is what Indiana had in that game. But that's like literally the only way. Like you have to match them in the trenches for 60 minutes, and you have to be able to make the big throws. Because if Ohio State gets in pressure moments, that's where you can take advantage of them. But that's very tough to do when they have all that talent, like and a defense like they do. And so I don't think, oh yeah, Miami, I don't think is going to even be able to withstand, or even if they could slow down Ohio State a bit, which I think they can, they're not going to be able to score on them the way they need to. So I mean, Ohio State will still score a little bit on Miami. I don't see Miami scoring just about anything against Ohio State of substance. So I mean, like other than maybe like a few points here or there. So that's yeah. I mean, I think Ohio State, because I mean, even like teams like Indiana scored like 13 points. Like I mean, I don't think Miami's going to get off the ground, like honestly. So yeah, I mean, I think Ohio State wins that game. The 10-point spread could hold. Oregon, TTU, I don't know, that could go either way. I mean, they're both very talented.
I still give
Yeah,
the slight edge to Oregon,
I
but I
think
will say
so, because
that's
it's a
probably
playoff
going to be the closest game that a Big Ten team plays in.
because of the playoff experience. Even if Texas Tech's a little bit more talent, which I don't even think is the case either. I think it's very even talented matchup, and well, yeah, Oregon has more playoff experience. So right now they're the slight favorites. That one is the true coin flip. And then Alabama, Indiana. I think Indiana's a better team. I don't really think it's a question. I think they could suffocate them. They could score. Yeah, I mean, I think in Indiana's just a better team there. Georgia, Ole Miss, like I said, like I want it to go one way. I don't think it's gonna happen. I think Georgia's a better team. And then same thing, Ohio State, Miami. I think Ohio State's a better team. So, that would set up the semifinals could end up being Oregon, Indiana, if it were to go in that direction. And it would, if Ohio State and Georgia wins, it could set up a very exciting semi matchup, a rematch of the one a few years ago where Ohio State missed the kick to get the win, and Ohio State, Georgia in the Fiesta Bowl. Indiana taking on Oregon in the Peach Bowl for the semis. So it's again 3 out of 4 Big Ten teams there, and that could set up an All Big Ten championship. We'll have to see. I mean, I'll have to see where Georgia is. Maybe Ole Miss gets through them. I don't know, but either way, I mean, it looks like we could have a lot of Big Ten in the later stages, and I mean, those would be juicy matchups. A rematch between Indiana and Oregon, a rematch between Ohio State and Georgia. Those two heavyweights going at it, and we'll see where it goes from there. But I mean, obviously, we'd like to cover this more in detail, matchup by matchup, getting a little bit more into like the mechanics of everything and the schemes, and like how it really does stack up. But that's a pretty good overview for each of the 4 playoff games for now, and obviously, yeah, I mean, I think we pretty much covered it. All the recaps, the FCS, and looking ahead to the New Year's Eve, New Year's Day, where things really get good. And I cannot wait for the next round of the playoffs, because those 4 games are going to really be high level competition on high level competition.
I'm excited, man. It's going to be great.
Yeah, no, it definitely it definitely should be. I mean, you got big brands, big talent. I mean, like top tier competition going against each other, just 4 really good games of college football in one weekend, or in a 2-day span, and that's really what this is all about. So you're definitely looking forward to it. In the meantime, this has been another episode of Sports Vibe, episode 103. I'm really delighted to bring back the series, talk about everything college football. As we shift forward, we might be doing this for the NFL playoffs. So, definitely stay tuned for that. And in the meantime, enjoy your holidays. Merry Christmas. Happy Hanukkah. We'll get back to you before the new year with the quarterfinal previews. And until then, the vibes are always high on Sports Vibe.
Have a good holiday, everybody.